There was a time a US state almost passed a law setting the value of pi to 3.2. This was House Bill 246, also known as the Indiana Pi Bill, and it was received by the Indiana General Assembly of 1897. That's what makes this story so ridiculous. For centuries we had known that pi was irrational, and even 2 millennia ago Archimedes found an estimate of pi up to 2 decimal places. So who was the mastermind behind this bill? Well, the villain of the story is physician Edward J. Goodwin, who argued that he discovered a way of squaring the circle. This was a mathematical problem where you tried to construct a square that has the same area as a given circle, and it challenged mathematicians for thousands of years, until eventually it was proven that it was mathematically impossible. However, undeterred, Goodwin published a paper in 1894 in the first volume of American Mathematical Monthly, but that alone would not make this a story worth telling. And had it just remained in his paper, this story probably would not have been as interesting. Just like plenty of other papers, it would have been debunked repeatedly, and science would have self-corrected as usual. But instead, Goodwin managed to convince a state representative to introduce the infamous House Bill 246. This was an attempt to establish a method for squaring the circle as part of law. And this is where we see the motivation behind the bill, where clearly from the text we can see that Goodwin was seeking to establish copyright over a mathematical constant. Something that just adds to the ridicule of this whole story. And if we had stopped there, maybe the story wouldn't have been as interesting, but it gets worse. Using his reputation, Goodwin contacted his local politician to introduce the bill to the Indiana House of Representatives. Allegedly, the representative did not understand the bill, but he introduced it anyway. And shockingly, the state legislature gave the first seal of approval unanimously on the obviously false result, in the process garnering some support from the press. This meant there was only one more step to officially becoming a law. And this is where Professor Clarence Waldo steps in, the hero of the story. A mathematics professor at Purdue University, Waldo was there when the bill was being read out, and even passed. And he's even quoted to have refused to meet Goodwin, stating that he was acquainted with as many crazy people as he cared to know. However, he didn't rest and let this bill pass. Instead, he sprung into action, speaking to state senators, informing them of the fallacy of this result. Luckily, he was successful, with the Senate debating and ultimately ridiculing the bill, sending it into legislative purgatory as it was indefinitely postponed. Had Goodwin learned a bit more about mathematical history, maybe he could have avoided such an embarrassing fiasco. Luckily for you, I have a series on the history of mathematics, so be sure to subscribe and stay up to date, and click on the link to be taken to the series.